So reduce the ventilatory demand. You can reduce the ventilatory demand by reducing the metabolic load, reducing the central drive. So once you give patient exercise training, endurance training or strength training, what happens is they tend to utilize more oxygen peripherally and increase the carbon dioxide levels, which will facilitate the peripheral receptors to understand that we require to eliminate the carbon dioxide. So what they'll do is they will maintain long expirations so that the carbon dioxide is eliminated properly. So the efficiency of carbon dioxide elimination increases, and the shallow breathing, which leads to extra oxygen accumulation and we all know that expiration is always like expiration to inspiration ratio is 2:1. You have longer expiration as compared to inspiration. What happens in dyspnea and breathlessness is that it almost becomes 1:1. There is no proper amount of time for carbon dioxide to get eliminated because expiration time decreases. So what happens after doing exercise is that it helps the respiratory system to eliminate your carbon dioxide efficiently. You can modify the activities of the patient by teaching them energy conservation techniques. We'll see that what are ECTs in further slides. So that what happens is that peripheral metabolic load is reduced and it gives them enough time for respiratory exchange. You can also always provide with supplemental oxygen therapy. It will not only help you to reduce the metabolic load, it will even alter your central respiratory drive, that you have enough oxygen, stop, do not breathe more, let expiration happen. So you all know that after hyperventilation, you always have, if you hyperventilate voluntarily, you will always have a small period of apnea, that is because of central pneumatic center activation, which is involuntary. Okay, so you reduce the central drive with either pharmacological therapy or oxygen therapy. The other thing you need to do is reduce the ventilatory impedance, respiratory resistance. How you do it? We all know in cases of COPD, there is a lot of hyperinflation that is already present in the lungs. What we can do is we can either surgically reduce the volume reduction, which is not our part basically, but we can always use positive airway pressures, CPAP machines, to maintain the inflammation, maintain the pressures inside the lung during inspiration and expiration. We reduce resistive loads on the airways by giving proper expiratory exercises like pursed lips breathing, because as you create a pursed lip, it creates a back flow of positive value inside the airways, which helps the airway to stay potent even during expiration and prevents the collapse of the airways, so that a proper exchange, a proper elimination of carbon dioxide takes place after an entire breath cycle. Okay, you can even use bronchodilators, which will help to increase relax the bronchospasm, or else we can also use mucolytics if the cause of narrowing of the airways is not bronchospasm and mucus accumulation. So that you can just add here. Okay. The other cause of dyspnea we saw is reduction in the respiratory muscle function or respiratory muscle wasting. So there we have to step in and train your respiratory muscle. So there is respiratory muscle training, nutrition, obviously proper proteinaceous nutrition will help in maintaining the skeletal muscle consistency and improves the strength of the muscles. You can always use ventilatory support, partial ventilatory support, obviously, where ventilator will initiate the breath, but the entire breath will be taken by the work of respiratory muscles themselves. That concept we might clear it in the lectures with ventilators. Okay. We can also alter the central perception, not central drive. Take the note here, it is not central drive. We've already altered central drive with pharmacological therapy and oxygen therapy. You can alter central perception by your psychological therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, desensitizing agents. You can use relaxation therapy, give them proper relaxed breathing, give them Fowler's position, teach them what the ratio of the breath should be, and educate them. Okay, now we come to respiratory muscle training, which was the other component of our pulmonary rehabilitation, which is a major part. Okay, so respiratory muscle strength is basically it is estimated by measuring the maximal inspiratory parameters. Usually what we measure is the pressure. Okay, so we all know that we have to determine the strength of the muscle of any peripheral skeletal muscle of upper limb, lower limb. You have RM, that is repetition maximum, to determine what is the strength, or you have your MMT grading, MRC gradings, etc., which help you to grade the muscles from 0 to 5. Yes, so same way we have PI max or MIP, that is maximal inspiratory pressure, which helps you to determine what is the strength of the respiratory muscle. It also helps you to train the respiratory muscle to its maximum. Okay, so MIP will reflect the strength of the diaphragm and other inspiratory muscles, while MEP will reflect the strength of abdominal muscles and other expiratory muscles like intercostals. Okay, so RMT can be done by 3 methods. Inspiratory resistive training, that is you attach any load on your diaphragm. You give them a TheraBand around the lower chest wall where the diaphragm acts the most, or on the external intercostal muscles you tie the belt, etc. So where you give them resistive training, how we do to the peripheral skeletal muscles, you overload the muscles and you train them. You can even put weight on the xiphisternum, the attachment of the diaphragm, and ask the patient to lift it while they are breathing in. Okay, so that is how you do inspiratory resistive training. Then you have threshold loading training, where the principle is usually overloading the muscle for training the inspiratory capacity. Okay, and then you have normocapnic hyperapnea. It is usually a device which is used to train the inspiratory muscles. So we all know that any exercise protocol should always go according to the prescription of the protocol, should always go according to your FIT principle: frequency, intensity, time and type. So for respiratory muscle training, the frequency will be 3 of 7 days. All the resistive training, as we know, according to ACSM, should usually go 3 days in a week, with the intensity of 10% to 50% of your maximal inspiratory pressure. Okay, in a day it should be at least performed for 30 minutes continuously, or 15 minutes twice in a day with a break. The type we all discussed, it can be inspiratory resistive, threshold loading, or normocapnic hyperapnea. Who will require respiratory muscle training? I guess after so much discussion about dyspnea, one answer, that is dyspnea, is what you all already know. The patients who have reduced inspiratory muscle strength, common sense, and then severe to moderate respiratory impairment. Now we'll jump to the third component, that is exercise training. Exercise training is usually undertaken as endurance training and strength training. Strength training here will